Hello, friends and colleagues. Welcome back to the Think Catalyst weekly podcast. I am Ricardo Ferraris, and I'm here with my business partner, Vivek Kuchibotla. Vivek, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. I'm good. Anxious to get on with this podcast.
Okay, excellent. We are in the period of State of the Unions. We've heard one recently, and one of the things that Vivek and I thought would be interesting is talk about the state of the union between advertisers and agencies. And there's a lot of issues that we will talk about. And this is not just something that we have heard. Vivek and I have been in this business now for over 60 years combined. But we've also seen it from a very different perspective with our firm, Think Catalyst. And interestingly enough, we did do a piece of research last year. We did a piece of research with agencies about how they feel with their relationship with clients, and it's what we're going to be presenting today and talk a little bit about today. Vivek, how you want to give us your quick view of this before we go into some of the details and the findings?
Yeah, well, the findings we're going to share are going to provide hard data that the relation not just in danger. Sorry about that. And since I'm an old guy and I like old references, I'm going to throw out an old reference here. And I'm going to do it in English and Spanish. See how many of my listeners can actually pick it up. But what we have here is a danger, Will Robinson, danger situation. Or as we used to say in Spanish, peligro, Will Robinson, peligro. This is serious danger. Please write me and let me know if you remember this reference. I think most people will.
We call it red light. In Brazil, they say luz vermelha. But it is a red light. It is a flag. And we thought it was important to open it up and put it in the podcast because it is something that needs to be addressed. And in fact, some of the efforts and programs that Vivek and I are promoting are indeed around in that area. So there's been a lot of talk about the relationship. It's not well. And what we did last year, at the beginning of last year, we approached Brain Research, which is an independent market research company here in Mexico, to do a study with agencies and get their reading in terms of what the state of the relationship is. So we invited 145 agencies to participate in the study, and we had 53 participants. Vivek, what do you think?
We were told by the people at Brain Research that they were stunned to see how many people actually responded to the survey.
Right.
And this was an insanely high level of response. And what that indicates is that there's a very, very high level of interest in the subject. So that's the first clue as to what the situation is looking like.
You wanna do finding number one, Vivek?
Yeah, I'll do finding number one, and I'm not going to embellish it. So here it goes. Only 15% of agencies or respondents consider that relationships with clients are strong.
Wow.
Only 15%.
Wow.
I'm going to say it another way. If we turn that around, we can say that 85% of agencies are not convinced that their relationship is strong, and they consider it to be either unclear or weak. That's a stunning number. I expected it to be bad, but I did not expect it to be this bad.
Right.
You ran agencies for a long time. What happens when your client doesn't trust you?
Oh, the relationship goes bad from the very beginning. There's just no openness. And there's no feeling that there's a partnership there. So the lack of trust will affect the quality of the work. It'll affect the, the day-to-day relationship. The creative is going to be seen sort of, as a leap in the void. There's too much time devoted to, it's us versus them and what do they think? And, is it correct? So there's a lot of second guessing going on, and that's wasteful. That is, it's demoralizing. Going into meetings and not knowing how your client is going to react, it's awful. The relationships will struggle on an ongoing basis on every single project. I've seen that happen, Vivek. Um, you know, it's difficult to fix if you don't fix it from the very top. And you need to have commitment to that. And sometimes you want to also bring a third party in to help you fix it, because the two sides are always going to be sparring. So, and there's a numerous set of issues around that. We'll talk a little bit about it later, but um it's difficult, very difficult when the relationship is not good.
I just want to add one
Mm,
thing here, and that whether we're talking about an advertising agency, a media agency, a digital agency, we're always talking about projects that by their very nature are not just let's do what we did yesterday again. It's always a change. It's
mm,
always a made to order solution.
mm,
And it's always something that is new and unexpected.
mm.
And there's no guarantee that it's going to work.
Yeah,
So if there is no trust between the two parties, the default will be one of two things. It'll be, you know what? We're not going to take any risks. We're not going to move the envelope forward in any way because we don't want to be blamed for anything.
yeah,
And that affects the advertiser, obviously. Um, or the other thing is, as you said, the minute something goes wrong, the finger pointing comes out, and the next project will be that much more difficult to do because
yeah,
everyone's terrified of the consequences
yeah,
of it not working. So
yeah,
this is in an agency business, a lack of trust is just about the worst thing that you can find.
yeah. It's a people business, it's if if there's no fit there, it's awful. It's awful. And
Mhm.
I must say, it's happened to me. We won a client, and within 6 months, the client decided to part, and it was a blessing for us too, because it, there were bad vibes inside the agency. It just created a lot of disruption, and we just didn't need that. The agencies, like clients as well, they're cultures, and they have to come together. So,
Sure.
and when the client does not respect the agency, it's tough. In fact, that's a nice bridge to go on to point number two, which is our second finding. And I'll mention this, Vivek. 75% of the respondents in this study that we did with Brain consider that the relationship was one-sided and in favor of the client. And that's not a good way to start a partnership. Okay. When an agency feels that they are not an equal partner, and they're more like a vendor, and that they're not being listened and they're being bullied, that's not a good thing either. And it's interesting to see that's a big number as well, I must say, a very big number. And we'll go deeper into that a little bit. So
If
mention, and what do you think?
if the agency feels like they're being bullied, they'll they'll turn into yes men because and this is one of the unspoken truths of the business when you're in the agency side. Rule number one, don't lose the client. So when conflict comes and you're feeling that you're being bullied, it's very difficult to stand up and push back because there is a greater risk of that client going elsewhere. And that's the worst thing. You don't want that. So the natural tendency is to just, after a while, you turn into yes man and you do whatever the client wants. Builds up a lot of resentment within the agency because no one wants to feel coerced into doing things. And at the end of the day, the work's not good. And obviously, there'll be consequences for the agency, but there's also going to be consequences for the
marketer.
advertiser.
Yeah.
For the advertiser. Particularly if the bullying behavior, if they move on to another agency and the same situation persists, it's not going to work with that agency either. And eventually the results will be felt, the impact of this will be felt on their sales, on their brand strength measures, and in the marketplace. So it's not doing anyone any good for this relationship to be one-sided.
My personal experience is when on the client side, they admit that they have issues, then it opens the door to fix it, to fix the relationship and to, you know, put it back together. And that's valid with any relationship, whether it be family or, you know, your partner, but it's also valid in business, and especially in the agency business, which is not, you're not buying nuts and bolts. You're buying personalities. You're buying people. You're buying artists. You're buying people that love this craft and have dedicated their life to it, and who also, if you think about it, I mean, the net is these people contribute to how they build a brand with you, a business that will sell gazillions and millions. So, you know, commit to that relationship, nourish it. And when there's openness on the other side, and that's not often the case, okay? Most marketers don't like to admit that they have an issue, but it does happen.
You know, just to build on that comment about marketers, I was a marketer for 10 years. And marketers will are also moving ahead in their career, and they're held accountable for results.
Sure.
And when things don't go well, if they stand up and say, you know what, I screwed up, it's my fault, that is obviously a hit in their career progression. So it's so much easier to say it wasn't my fault, it was the agency, right? And that's it. They're not doing it because they're mean. They're doing it because it's politically convenient for them to do it, and that's not going to go away, unfortunately. I wish it was. I wish it were going to go away, but it's not. It's just reality. But maybe it's time. Maybe it's time that marketers were given the opportunity, the off-ramp to say this project didn't work, and part of it was on me. Or no,
One of the
maybe wishful
conversations,
thinking.
one of the conversations that I had with clients when we started off relationship was always, you know, what did you like and not like about working with your previous agency? What worked and what didn't work? And I could tell from the get-go, CEOs and CMOs that would open up and discuss this openly and would, you know, and some of them would say, you know, we have a crappy process, you know, we don't, you know, our people aren't trained as well to do this and that and blah, blah, blah. And that allows the agency also to sort of also see how they can operate in a way that they can help the marketer. And it was, those relationships ended up turning out to be pretty good. So, and there was an understanding there, you know, and also an opportunity to talk up top when sometimes things went bad. So, and things go bad. There's always an argument, Vivek. It's about the art of managing it. And that's where smart CMOs and CEOs and account directors and agency CEOs, well, they step in and do it.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
you want to hit point number 3 is a big one. I mean, this is, I think, probably at the
I,
core of the issues here, but go ahead and talk about it, because we've seen.
I will highlight the point number 3, and then I'll hand it over to you so you can tell me how you dealt with it for 20 years.
Go
So
ahead.
91% of agencies would prefer to work on a fee basis.
Right.
I'm going to say that again. 91% of agencies would prefer to work on a fee basis in a market where they are being forced to work on a per project basis,
Yeah.
more and more. Over to you.
Right.
Why is that not a good thing?
So the background is we've seen a lot of AOR assignments shift from AOR, which is which usually is a contract with a steady or a fixed revenue stream for the agency on a month-to-month basis. We've seen a lot of AOR work shift over to project work. So agencies are pitching more projects to win, and once they win them, they agree to a compensation. But fees, the ongoing fee, monthly fee basis, I think is it has its issues, but when the agency has a clear vision of what their revenues are going to be over the course of the year, as well as, I would say, a proper statement of work, because the fee is based on developing a staffing plan against a statement of work, an SOW, then it's easier for the agency to plan staff and resources accordingly. When that doesn't happen, it's there's a lot of issues that come up. The client will not get the attention. They will not get the quality talent. They will not get the seniority on the business, and you'll see more talent rotation, more different people coming in and out, and that affects the quality of the work and the quality of the relationship. So from the get-go, when the agency is not properly compensated, again, based on a statement of work, based on understanding what kind of resources are necessary, it all goes to hell. Been there,
What makes an
been there.
advertiser think, what makes an advertiser think that an agency will be able to work on their business when they're worried about hitting their monthly revenue targets? And if their monthly revenue targets are in doubt because you're working on a per project basis, how in the world are you supposed to keep a team on staff?
Right.
And how are you going to make sure that that team is of the highest quality and very well compensated and loyal to your agency if you don't know if you're going to have a project next month to be able to pay them? It's
Yeah.
that simple. So the more agencies have to worry about month-to-month survival of their own P&L, the less time they have to worry about advertiser problems. So again, this is one of those things where advertisers think they are doing the smart thing, but the only thing that they're really doing is shooting themselves in the foot.
Last night I spoke to a senior talent in the advertising business who and one of the things we talked about was 3 agencies laid off people this week. Okay. And the implications around that. It's in the end, it's probably because the revenue isn't there. Okay. Not
Of
because
course.
necessarily the agency is bad. But you and I are going to have a couple of conversations next week with advertisers, and this topic will come up. Rotation will come up, seniority will come up, dedication will come up, and you and I will have to navigate that conversation, because we will have to tell this advertiser it's also done by, how your compensation agreement is made with your agency. So And we're not talking about overpaying the agency, is paying them properly for the work that you're asking them to do. That's all, and if you're open to that conversation, you'll find a way to fix it and make sure that you'll have, a very good agency team. I had a number of clients who said, I want, and I will pay 100% for the people on my team, because I know I can have them, and I can access them whenever I want, and there's not going to be an issue with rotation or talent fleeing, etc. God bless them. Those are some of the best relationships. So we'll hear from both sides, Vivek.
Yep.
Interesting.
You take the next one.
Okay, I will. Now, this is another issue in the business that we hear about this all the time. The research confirmed something that we already knew, something that we have lived, but 85% of agencies, here's the finding, 85% of agencies consider that the pitch process is not well run, and in most cases only favors the client. And we see this ongoing, and even more now as more work has gone to project work rather than AORs. Yeah. So what are the agencies seeing? They're seeing that the pitch is not run properly because the brief isn't right, because they invite 15, 20 agencies to participate. Imagine you're invited to participate on a pitch with 20 other agencies. You have a 5% chance of winning. Do you really want to get into that? Right? There's no process, there's no feedback. Some clients are a little more rude and upfront by saying everything you present belongs to me, and agencies let that happen. And those are not, when that happens, you know that the relationship is not going to be equal. You know that the relationship is not going to be right. So your thoughts. I know you have some very intense thoughts about this, about the pitching process, Vivek, and we've seen it. We've seen it.
We've seen it.
And we hear
We've
about
seen
it all the time. And Vivek and I run pitches. Okay.
Yep.
We run pitches and we try to fix those issues, and we try to have those open conversations, but we're far away from fixing this problem.
Oh yeah. When the rule of law applies, everyone plays by the rules. When it's perceived that the rule of law doesn't apply anymore, anything goes, and everyone will do whatever they can get away with.
Mm-hmm.
And if an agency feels that pitches are being rigged, and by being rigged, there's many ways that they perceive they're rigged. They're set up just to lower fees. The winner is predetermined, and everyone is just going through the motions. They're set up just to take a look at a lot of different ideas so that they can borrow the best idea, even though they don't hire the agency. There's many ways that they feel they're rigged. So if those are the rules of the game, or if there's no rules of the game, then agencies also will start doing things that we don't want done in this process. One. The other thing is that the good agencies will say, I'm not playing this game. I'm
Right.
not going to be involved.
Yeah.
And then the advertiser is losing out on the best talent in the market.
Yeah.
So this is we've talked about pitch hell. This is not going in the right direction, and it needs to change. It needs to change for the benefit of the agency and the advertiser. It's got to change.
Well, and I think that there should be that dialogue between agencies and advertisers about this, and there's different forums that can come up where that can be discussed. It is to the benefit of the advertiser to have a proper pitch and to get a proper agency to work with them, and especially now, there's been a shift in, the market, and not just in Mexico, but in other markets as well. The shift has been to a growth of independent agencies, with some very, very sharp, great people, great talented people running these agencies. And they're the ones who are saying, I'll think about participating, and let me see really how you're going to run this pitch, right? That said,
Yep.
I want to make a mention here in Europe and in the United States, the majority of pitches, 8 out of 10 pitches are run by consultants. They're not run independently by advertisers. Whereas in Mexico and in Latin America, the opposite is true. Very few are run by consultants, only the multinational pitches, the global pitches, and the rest are run directly. And, without offending anyone, this is where some of the problems are, because the intricacies of how an agency works and how it can really offer up what their real capabilities and competencies are, and how you see that in a pitch is not run properly. So food for thought. And this is something, again, I don't want to sound commercial, but this is something that Vivek and I help not just advertisers, but also agencies work better at how they work in pitches. And you have scarce resources these days, so you can't go to every single pitch you're invited. You have to be selective, and you have to know which ones are the ones that have, you have a decent possibility of winning, but also a decent possibility of having a very good relationship, because you want a good relationship with your clients. Punto. Right? So
Yep. So
in
the
that
fifth one.
respect, I'm sorry, Vivek, I interrupted you.
No, the fifth key finding
Right.
we found is that 94% of respondents say that the pitch process must change for the benefit of both parties. More than 9 out of 10 agencies are crying out for change, and they're saying that this cannot stand, this needs to change. And I think advertisers need to start listening to agencies a little bit more. If your partner is telling you that things are wrong, you want to listen to them. And I want to make a comment here. Agencies and advertisers have different perspectives, because agencies work with a lot of different clients and they're involved in a lot of different pitches, while advertisers typically are working with their agency. So, to use an analogy, the agencies have a view of the forest, while the advertiser only has a view of the tree. And what agencies are saying when they look at the forest is that this process has to change. So it's well worth listening to agencies. They're looking at the whole industry and they're saying that things are falling apart.
I think the more communication there is between the advertiser and the client, the advertiser and the agency, the better the opportunities are to really understand where some of the issues are in the relationship and fix it. And pitching is part of that. Agencies should ask advertisers, how are they going to run the pitch? What is involved in this process? How much time is involved? What kind, have a look at the brief. You may say, I'm not going to participate in this. And if an advertiser doesn't give you information, that's a telltale sign that things are not good. Okay? I'll say that right now, and without any reservation. If you're not getting enough information, you got to ask yourself a question: do I want to participate? So, and it's better sometimes not to participate, and many agencies do that. And it's better not to have clients that are not going to respect you. Punto. It's as simple as that.
I will throw out a challenge to advertisers. Advertisers are moving from AOR structures to per project work, and even so, they're not happy with the results. There's a generalized level of frustration with the agency world in general. So advertisers, ask yourself, Are you causing some of this chaos that is hurting you? And I think the answer is yes, you are causing part of this chaos, because with the exception of maybe 2 or 3% of the companies in this business, most people who are running pitches at corporations are not experts in buying the services of an agency. They might be experts in buying raw materials or packaging materials or hamburger buns or whatever. And I have no doubt that they're experts at that, but it's different when you're buying the services of an agency. So look at yourselves in the mirror. A lot of the problems that you are experiencing with your agencies are being caused by your management of the pitch process. It's incendiary, but it's true.
Vivek, you want to go do a quick summary of the findings?
Yeah, I want to do that because I think it's really important. So if
Yeah.
you remember nothing else from this podcast, remember the situation is dire. One, only 15% of agencies consider relationships with clients to be strong. Number two, 75% of respondents consider that the relationship is one-sided in favor of the client. Number three, 91% of agencies would prefer to work on a fee basis and not on a per project basis. Number four, 85%, more than 8 out of 10 agencies consider that the pitch process is not well run and only favors the client. And finding number five, 94%, more than 9 out of 10 agencies say the pitch process must change for the benefit of both parties. These findings are, in my opinion, chilling. And what it tells me is that the situation is actually much worse than we thought.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Yeah.
I'll
No,
hand it
I
over to
agree.
you.
No, I agree. I would only say this, if any of our listeners are interested in going deeper into this subject, please write to me or to Vivek, reach out to us. Happy to present the presentation to you in detail and really discuss it in the end, because the findings are what we talked about right now. But discussing and perhaps giving some guidance in terms of how to address some of these issues. The dialogue isn't there. It's obvious, and this study only confirmed what we have seen over the last number of years in the business, but also seeing it as consultants over the last 2.5 years. We're going into year 3 now, and we want to help fix it. And we think it can be fixed. It's absolutely can be fixed. We've seen wonderful, and we've been part of establishing wonderful client agency relationships. And that's, one of our goals. And we always talk about better relationships deliver better results. And that's something that, advertisers and agencies should consider. So open up and discuss it. If you want to talk to us, write to us, reach out. Share this. This is probably one of the most important podcasts that we've done since we've been doing them, Vivek. And I think if there's enough attention to this, we will see better relationships, much more respect, and actually better work. We really want to see better work. So that's my
I'd
closing
just like
argument.
to add one thing.
Yeah.
We've presented an industry-wide panorama, but the solution to these problems is done on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
There is no grand industry-wide solution.
Yeah.
Because every situation is different, and every situation has to be individually addressed. So if you want to make a difference in the industry, fix your own personal relationship with your agency first.
Yeah.
And the more instances we get of that, the better off the industry will be, and there'll be real change in the industry. So
Fantastic. To our audience, thank you for joining us. Share, like us, get in touch with us if you want to talk, if you want to have a conversation. We appreciate you joining us today and hope to see you in our next podcast as well. Vivek, have a good one. Thank you.
you too.
Very interesting. And thank you to Brain Research and Laura Rubalcaba who helped us with this
Absolutely.
research. And maybe there's a moment that we would want to do another follow-up, another wave of this, just to see where this is moving. But I think we'll find the results will probably be the same for a while, unless we get address them.
Even though this research is Mexico based, I would challenge any listener on the advertiser side to show these findings to an agency and ask them, does this sound right? And I'm pretty sure they'll say, absolutely, this sounds right.
Yeah.
But beyond Mexico, if you're in another market, if you're in the US, in the Hispanic market, if you're in Colombia, do the same thing. Tell your agency friend, here's some research from Mexico. Does this sound like it might apply in my market?
Sure.
And I will bet a dinner, and those who know me as being very cheap. So a dinner is an important bet I'm making here. I will bet you a dinner that this applies in your local market.
You owe me one, by the way. You owe me one.
I'd hope you're forgotten.
In in that context, Vivek and I are having conversations with the advertising and marketing community in Spain, in Guatemala, in the US Hispanic market, and in Colombia. So
And in Mexico.
and obviously we've been in Mexico now at it for some time. So we'll update you all with some of those conversations and findings and when we have them. Vivek, thanks again. Have a great week.
Thank you.
See you next week, folks. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks. Take care.